£3,300 for a slot at a semi-exclusive test day at Silverstone.
I made it through the first corner, and the second, and the third, and the fourth. I made it into the fifth. And then I learnt what a pirouette was.
This car gets mentioned the whole time. Hello and welcome to the Collecting Addicts podcast, episode 31, where there have been accusations that we're all a bit middle class and too comfortably off. So today, Neil Clifford's in Ibiza, Manish Pandey's in Tobago, Chris Cooper's in St Maurs, I'm in Bristol, and Edward Lovett's, I think, in London. There we go. In the comments, hate us all as much as you want. We can't help it. We're just trying to live our lives. Hot topics for this week's discussion are as follows. Track days. We're starting with track days. Your best track day stories, your worst track day stories, how you feel about track days, whether they're good or bad. It's a bit of an in-joke, this, because Chris Cooper was supposed to do this 4 weeks ago, and we've denied him, and he's been chomping at the bit. So Neil Clifford can go first.
I have a love-hate relationship with track days. I'm sure I've said it about 100 times before. I really don't like being on the track. Apart from that, I love track days. Because it's true. I do love, because it's a collection of weirdos. It's all the people that you like and you want to talk shit to, and you want to inspect their cars, and you want to have a look at all the things that you haven't bought yet, and you've still got an itch of having, I don't know, a 300 SX or whatever, or a Subaru or a Mitsubishi, and you can tire kick without actually buying the bloody thing and chat to other weirdos whilst Chris is having another glass of rosé in preparation for his track day 15-minute monologue. So I generally like them. I pay the money, I go along, I drink tea, I have the bacon sandwich at 8 in. I meet wonderful people, most importantly. I just don't like going around the track. Maybe that's
fine.
Slightly odd, and I need some help on that. And I'm looking for the two Chris's maybe on September the 11th to give me some instruction, be it that is my wedding anniversary. Rather an unfortunate date for a wedding anniversary, although it was 1999. So yeah, I've got an out on that. But I'm hoping for some instruction, how to discover one's grip limits, how to remember the track, how to not look a dick and get overtaken by something much slower than what you've bought and you've taken to the day.
That should be the ambition of the day.
Can I say something even more middle class?
Yes.
That sounded like the perfect answer to just a minute. If I'd said, your subject now is track days.
I would have.
No repetition, deviation, or hesitation.
I think I did repeat a few.
But
you didn't at all.
The word track.
I think we should move now to Chris Cooper.
No,
set your timers and let's see where this goes.
So I quite like track days, but I think Neil is right. They are full of very interesting people, and I was trying to think when track day started. I think they're a relatively new phenomena for people of our maturity and youth. I reckon late 80s, early 90s. There was an outfit called Club 89, which sounds like a Berlin establishment of dubious repute. Club 89 was run by a lady who was a massive touring cars fan. And the idea of their track days was they would run at circuits where the touring cars had been that weekend. So you'd go along to usually a Monday, sometimes before the weekend, and there'd be all these touring car drivers, so Alain Menu, Ricard Rydell, Tim Hub, they'll be there. And they would all sit in your car and give you, just mad.
Lovely.
And in those days, people had normal cars. They had everyday cars. There's a bit of footage I found somewhere on YouTube of an early 90s Club 89 day at Silverstone. And everyone's driving hatchbacks and Golf GTIs and some sort of stuff. And now it's just gone mad. Everyone arrives. Lots of people arrive in an articulated lorry and they're wearing the kit and so forth. And they're talking in rather sort of adenoidal terms about how much toe-in they've got in their GT3s and so forth. But track days have kind of, it's a hackneyed term, democratized access to racing circuits. But they really have. There was an outfit called Wheel Talk a few years ago. Remember Wheel Talk? So Wheel Talk started, they were the people who I was first aware of, who did track days at the Nürburgring and Spa. They sort of disappeared after a rather unfortunate episode where, because they would usually run in the autumn, kind of an end of season kind of jolly, and you go with your mates to the Nürburgring, which is about 5 hours drive from Calais, bit more, maybe 6 hours. So you're not going to go there on a whim. And there was a rather delicate moment where everybody turned up to the briefing run by Wheel Talk, only to find that Wheel Talk had forgot to book the circuit or something similar. So there was
Are you going to mention the name or not? You're going to mention the name of the individual?
No, I won't mention who it was. No. But it does remind me. So, and it was my favorite track day experiences, and I definitely won't mention who this is, although some of you work out who it is. They're a very good outfit. They're very, very good outfit. But the chap who used to run them had an interesting approach to customer relations, and he clearly regarded most of his customers as complete nincompoops and morons and idiots and so forth. And he had particular lack of enthusiasm for people turning up in GT3 Porsches, because he thought they were always going to crash and give him pain and make him a difficult day. And I can remember the briefings he used to give at Spa, where you get everyone together, and all these GT3 owners, 911 GT3 were very, very excited to think, I've got a GT3 on at Spa, I'm going to be a god. And you could see this chap was just completely fed up with all of this. So he'd hold up a little picture showing what Eau Rouge was. And he'd point to the internet radio and said, that's where all the GT3s crash. They're all tits, those people. He didn't use the word tit, but, I don't like swearing on here. It was a slightly stronger word that ended and started with a T and a T. He said, they're all tits. That's where they end up. And somebody asked a question, and this chap said, before you ask, have you got a GT3? And the chap said, yes, tit, and pointed to where he's going to crash at the top of Eau Rouge. And the next bloke asked a question, and he didn't realize, he said, you're a tit, you've got a GT3. And there was this chap and his amazing approach to customer relations. There was they ran an event at the Nürburgring quite late in the year. If anybody been to Nürburgring knows that the pine needles come off the trees, like little roller bearings all over the track. It's quite slippery. And there'd be a guy who'd do like a ducks and drakes thing where you had to follow an instructor from one of the local hero people at the ring. So the local instructor thought, this is my opportunity to show everybody how fast I am. So rather than going slowly, he goes super fast. And it was very, very wet, slippery, pine needly morning. And everybody fell off. So the guy who got irritated by people bringing GT3s went just on the way to moon. So everybody came back to the paddock in dribs and drabs, corners missing for their cars, bumpers and so forth. And this poor chap he just needed oxygen. He was so angry. He was so cross. And he would just force his way back up to the podium. And all he said, driver's briefing, now. Everyone got the way back. And he got to the front. He was wheezing. I thought he was going to have a seizure. He was so angry, so short of breath. And he got to the front and his face was going. And he could only utter one word repeatedly, everybody. And it was the abbreviated plural of Cambridge University netball team. And that's all he could utter repeatedly, all these people. But still... when
you say all these people, it was you and me as well. We were both...
It was you and me as well. Yeah, it was. So I love track days because the characters they produce... and Neil, we'll have a great day on our track day. So I think they're great. There's a slight problem actually brewing, I think, at the moment in the UK because test days, so motorsport test days where you have to have a motorsport license and so forth, they're becoming fewer and fewer and far between and very, very expensive. Silverstone has these semi-exclusive test days now. £3,300 for a slot at a semi-exclusive test day at Silverstone.
That's very expensive.
£300 before COVID.
Yeah.
So more and more people are using track days effectively as test days. They shouldn't because the insurance isn't in place and blah, blah, blah. So it means that the demeanor of track days is changing. And a lot of track day events now look like they're test days.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I've had that experience of being at a normal Silverstone Gold track or whatever they're called when you get that bollocking by that briefing in the morning and all of that. But then all you've got is these LMP2 bloody, ugly bloody things.
Yeah.
puffing up your ass the whole time.
Yeah.
We have mentioned operating Gold Track. Gold Track are very, very good. We have no
They're good. They're very
They're
well
very good.
organised. Yeah,
Yeah, they are very, very good.
But I tell you what, if you tangle with Melindy, she'll give you a right fucking bollocking.
She will do, yeah.
He's
And,
good.
and Callum is a
Right,
legend.
Manish, have you ever done a track day?
Yes, yeah,
Have you?
yeah, I've done a few
Yeah.
track days.
Yeah.
There were two that come to mind when a friend and I shared a 30th birthday, did the Silverstone sort of, you arrive, you do the go-karting, then they give you a lovely ride around in a Peugeot 306 with a 6-speed box. I remember that was a lot of fun with an instructor, and then you get driven around very quickly. I can't remember what it was. And then you actually go up to Formula Fords by the end of the day, and you have the slow lane and fast lane. I absolutely loved it. And I remember the Formula Ford, the thing that I most loved about it was how tiny the gear travel was. I mean, it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
It was so enjoyable just doing that, literally. And for a guy who doesn't drive very much, I wasn't too shabby. But my favorite track day story, and I will drop a name, for various reasons. In 2016, Hugh Grant and I found ourselves at a particular event at the Abu Dhabi Music and Arts Festival. He narrated The Little Prince, and he'd done it as a kind of favor to me, actually, and I'd done it as a favor to the people who organize it. So knowing that Hugh's such a massive petrol head and that I absolutely love cars as well, they closed Yas Marina Circuit for us. And basically, it was 3 of us in Aston Martins with an instructor in the car on the short Yas Marina Circuit. So you don't have that whole kilometer. You go about half a kilometer and you come back in. And also they've got a great karting circuit. And I remember, the thing about him is he comes across as so terribly abrasive at times. It's because he just doesn't really like, the press or the average press. But he's a really lovely guy. He's absolutely hilarious, I think, in real life. He's a very, very quick driver. Very, very quick driver. And just remember that when it came to karting, I was just having a lot of fun. I was just arsing around, not trying to brake properly because he weighs 30 kilos more than me. So I could just do what I wanted and catch him up, but I couldn't overtake him. He would just place it in the right place. But when we went out into the circuit, what was great was he was quick. He was very, very precise, but there's a really ugly bump about halfway along the main straight of Yas Marina, and he hit that twice. And he decided he didn't like it. So I remember that was when I did get to overtake him, pretty much flat, doing a little thingy. And he came out
ugly bump. I've heard bumps on racing circuits referred to in a number of ways, but an ugly bump is a brilliant way of describing it.
It was an ugly bump. Honestly, it was just one of these things you didn't see it until you hit it. And you just catch the car. And then he came up to me and went, "What the fuck do you weigh? How much do you weigh? I want to know how much you weigh." And I think I was 68 kilos. He went, "Well, I'm 88 kilos, and that's why. That's why. It's the only reason you overtook me," he said. Like, I'm really, really angry and serious. And then he started laughing. To this day, I haven't quite worked out whether he meant it or not. But I have a picture of us on the podium afterwards, me holding up my lap times, him not holding his up, and I shall donate it to this podcast so you can see. It was,
send
but it was a
us
great
one
day.
so we can put it up here. Yeah.
Right. Edward,
for
love,
sure.
do you have a story about a track day involving Hugh Grant or any other AAA lister?
Not really, no. But I might have mentioned on here, I've had a couple of accidents in my time, and one of my early accidents was on the first time I ever did a track day. And,
in a GT3 with that guy.
It wasn't. It wasn't a twit one. But so I decided to go to Castle Combe, and my father very kindly let me borrow a Lotus Elise for my very first track day.
Oh,
and I
your
was
father
living at
doesn't
home.
love
I was
you.
living at home at the time, and we had a Lotus dealership. So he let me borrow a Lotus Elise. So I woke up one Saturday morning. It was pissing down with rain. So I tootled along to Castle Combe to do my first ever track day. And the Lotus got quite a lot of attention because they were brand new then. And I went out. It was so wet. I made it through the first corner and the second and the third and the fourth. I made it into the fifth. And then I learnt what a pirouette was. And it spun and it spun and it spun until I eventually learnt what an arm cove was.
That is the problem with Castle Combe. There's a lot to hit.
Oh, that was my first track day. And what was more embarrassing, the car
Daddy,
got put on a
sorry.
the car got put on a low loader.
No.
And I got in the low loader and I had to go back to our family's body shop on a Saturday afternoon and to deliver the car there. And when I got home that evening, I had my head hung in shame, and my father was furious. I'd already had multiple fuck ups in my life. This just added to it, and luckily for me, on this day, my mother was also livid. But she was livid with my father to say, I told you not to let him take it. I told you should have gone with him.
But an old Elise in the wet at Castle Combe, I honestly think I'd rather have a LaFerrari at bloody Spa.
Yeah.
Well, you and I were there. You and I were there several years later in a KTM, and that does not work in the wet at Castle Combe.
No, we can tell that. We might be able to tell that story Monday, mightn't we?
We might do. But I just wanted to add just a couple of things. I'm with Neil, and I think it is very good value to go to a race circuit. And, if you realise after going to multiple track days, it's better not to be taking your GT3 or M3 road car. And I can't judge the people that turn up and treat a track day like a race event, because it's their passion. They love doing what they do. But it's very intimidating for people that are new to track days and turn up in a road car. And I've always thought I'd love to do a sort of a track event, but where the track is, whether it's cones or something, to almost turn it into more of a sort of fast road day. So you can drive whatever car you turn up in, old or new, at a pace you wouldn't do on the road, but where you're not constantly battling to get the apex or get a fast lap or deal with people.
That's a really good idea.
And Chris and I obviously did this track day in Chicago a few weeks ago. And if you're fortunate enough to have a private track day with a few friends where you can have breakfast and lunch, and there's a few cars you can go and hop into and use, and you do it with total respect. You drive the car very differently to how you might be driving your own GT3 on a track day. And that, Chris, I don't know what you thought, but we were probably driving the cars at 60% of their capability, but it's actually really enjoyable just to drive a really nice car at 60%.
Yeah.
Can I say, when I went on that track day, because I'm the real non-driver here, even, I know Neil pretends he's a non-driver, I really am, but what really bit me, what got under my skin was the word rhythm. And it was so much more important than sort of just trying to be quick. And when you felt that you had the rhythm and the gears were just shifting exactly on time, and you felt that you were turning in, I didn't even feel that I was going particularly quickly. And I remember I was quite intimidated getting into a Formula Ford, because I just couldn't believe.
It's intimidating.
Yeah, but that tiny little engine behind
the gearbox feels really violent and snatchy.
Oh God! But once it started to slide, and once that rhythm started to come, I remember I went into the faster lane because they were quite segregated, a kind of going round tootling lane and then an overtaking lane, and they were very, very sort of Silverstone disciplined about it. And I came out, and my instructor did show me the times, and she said, "Look at those! Look at that little run!" And
you could be an F1 manish.
You could be.
The next week. No, but it's just the concept of rhythm being almost as important as that kind of, stupid one lap nonsense. I think that's what I'm saying.
You're making some sunglasses for your track days, aren't you, Chris?
Yeah, we're not. That's far too important to tell about now, because that's a big secret. That is, again, it's a beautiful design range. Track days. I'm so torn by track days. I can't think of a subject
I
that
could tell you don't even want to talk about it, really.
brings out so many positive things, but negative things. To start with, I've never been more intimidated than my first track day. I found my first track day more intimidating than my first race because I turned up there and it wasn't. There was no friendly faces at all. I was just glared at, looked at. No one said hello. No one wanted to talk about cars. It was horrible. But it was at the Nürburgring. It was at a wheel talk day, and I really wanted to be there. I was there on my own.
Which year was that? When you first go there?
99, I think.
Yeah.
98, 99. And I luckily I did bump into some people I vaguely knew, and then it was better. But it was intimidating. So I think the first thing is, if you see someone new at a track day, go and say hello to them. Go and ask them why they're there. Go and give them a pat on the arse and say, "Don't worry, it's your first time, but it's going to be great fun. And if you want any advice, come and talk to us. Or at lunch, if you're on your own and there's no one to talk to, come and talk to us." Because I hated it. I felt much more lonely then than I did at my first race meeting. I think track days are fundamentally a brilliant way to enjoy your car away from the public road going fast. And we can only support that because the road is increasingly not a great place to go fast. So they're great. However, I think the bandwidth for track days is quite narrow. In other words, I think if you're too much of an amateur now, the track days are difficult to accommodate you. And I think if you're getting too fast, you need to piss off and go racing. This is the bit I really feel at the top end, the ones that keep pounding round and spending all money on road cars. Lads, go racing. Go and compete. Go and compete because you're not getting everything you need at these track days. There's a competitive side to you that needs the chance to go out and do some racing.
Or find out that actually racing isn't for you.
Yeah, but give it a go. Go and give it a go. Don't bully people at track days and be the really quick guy. Go take the next step. Go on, be brave or brave girl. Go and have a go at the next step. I'll give you my. That's how I feel about track days. I think they're brilliant, but they can be really intimidating, and I don't really like that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my best track day story though. It has to be at the Nürburgring. I'm not going to mention any names. I've gone out there with a group of people, a wider group of people. I reckon 15 years ago, and maybe more. And one of those people is driving a British sports car. That's quite interesting. And he comes into the paddock area bit, or the tourist and forum where you go out, that car park.
Yeah.
There's a guy there with his wife who is they're both very interested in the cars. I don't know what they've arrived in. Anyhow, she is hassling everyone for a go in the cars, a ride in the cars, and he seems quite happy for his wife to go and do these rides. This Englishman agrees to take this woman for a ride, for a lap in his British sports car. He comes back into the car park where he doesn't stop. He goes straight through the car park with this girlfriend of this other man and goes somewhere else, and then comes back 20 minutes later with a grin on his face. And we all said, "What's going on?" And he said, "I can't say." And then we carried on with our track day. And that happened at the Nordschleife on a track day.
I think I know who that is.
To this day, I cannot believe it happened. I'm saying no names. I'm not saying the car involved, but it was just the way that he rolled in and we all expected him to stop and this person to get out.
You have to, yeah.
It went straight through and straight off to the nearest hotel. Yeah. It was a quite remarkable display of forceful driving. So now we've got to decide what car we would like to drive 1,000 miles in. This was
one day.
This is one day. Neil Clifford set this. And I'm going to answer first because I quite often go last. This car gets mentioned the whole time, but it's the single best mile muncher for me in that it's good fun to drive. But when you want to just settle back, it's so quiet and soothing. And it is an S63 coupe.
I knew that would be your answer.
I did 25,000 miles in mine. I've never driven a car that's better at doing that job. I really haven't. And if I've spoilt it for anyone else, I do apologise.
No one chose it because we all knew that you would choose it. Yeah.
Is it me now?
Yes.
I've got two, which is very annoying. The logical one for me, it's a little bit more sporty than your suggestion. I mean, it's quite ironic, isn't it? And a man that obviously loves to drive and can drive very fast chooses a sort of a limo, basically, for an old bloke who's retired from his whatever job and he's driving down to his house in Saint-Tropez. For me, I wouldn't do that because I have a vision of me being sportier than I am when I drive. So I would have a 991 Turbo S. I think that's the logical car because it's sporty enough. It's enjoyable. It's small. It's got all the bits. It's got air conditioning. If you've got the buckets, you're lucky. You've got your bloody car play. You can put it in sport. You can have a bit of fun, and you'll get out and you'll still be comfortable and you'll still be happy. So I think that's the logical truth.
Can I add one thing to that though?
Yes.
As you know, I'm not a massive 911 fan, but 991s generate so much road noise from those rear tires. I reckon I've never done more than 600 miles in a day in mine. After 600 miles in a 991, your head hurts.
If you've got the Collecting Addicts playlist cranked right up, hopefully that would cover the road noise.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry, Neil, carry on.
No, it's fair to say you're right about that. I do own one, and I'm lucky enough that my wife treats it as a daily driver. And I haven't told her that it's got winter tires on it all year round, so it's even slighted because I can't be asked to pay for the
squirmy in the summer.
You what?
That's quite squirmy. Those winter tires in the summer get quite squirmy.
She'd be all right. I just can't be asked to pay you the money to put the summers back on. So it's actually twice. She's like, this car's very noisy. No, it's not. It's lovely, this car.
Yeah.
The car that I've actually done it in, which is a little more radical, but it's the funny thing is, this is why I brought this subject up. It's 1,001 miles from my house to Padova. And I had a friend, a very dear friend, who was living in Padova, actually. And we all said, we should come down and watch the start of the Mille Miglia. Let's all just drive down to your house. We'll have dinner, thinking, it's very easy to drive from Buckinghamshire to Padova. It bloody isn't, actually. It's 17 hours. And it sounds very knobby, but anyway, I'm going to be knobby. It was in a Ferrari 599 GTO, which clearly is not the absolute choice of the perfect car to do that in. But you know what? I'm like, sod it. I own a 599.
What else are you going to do with it?
What else are you going to do with it? And I think I left home at like 3:15 a.m. to get to the 445 Eurotunnel. And then it's like 890 miles from the Eurotunnel. And it feels fine. I've done Milan 7 or 8 times in a day. You get to Milan, but it's like 9 at night, and you've still got that 200 miles or whatever it is to Padova. And you've had 19 espressos, you've had 14 bags of Haribo, you've had about 72 pisses, you've had some sort of weird plastic ham sandwich or whatever in Switzerland. You've been caught in the traffic through the bloody Mont Blanc. But that last 150 miles, which is that sort of beautiful east-west motorway that goes Milan to Venice, but it's like Monza. It's 2 lanes. There's cones everywhere. You've only got 100 meters of straightness before it does another little chicane. You're trying to stay awake. The windows are down. You've got REM bloody out of time on for the 17th time. You're singing along, trying to keep yourself awake. But you've done it in a 599 GTO. So I've done it in a very practical car, and it was still lovely, and what a great memory.
What's your cold air strategy when you're really struggling? Are you coming out the window? Are you getting a scoop of air in, or are you cranking up the air onto your face? What are you doing?
Head out the window.
Yeah. It's not,
When you something about, so when we used to race in these cup cars all those years ago, they had no ventilation at all. And Mr. C used to like a decent, consistent stream of air onto his face. There was a bit of metal tubing that used to come in and it was good. It was directional, and it was known as the scooper.
It was known as the scooper.
It was known as the scooper.
Yeah.
When you start to get the dozing, it is.
Super work.
You need to pull over and have a coffee or a walk for a moment or something like that. It's it's very hard to shake.
What you need
to
do is get something lively like Leonard Cohen on, really get the juices flowing.
Yeah.
Perhaps some driving tunes, that might do it. I think the scooper worked really well. It was, and when we drove that Bentley, which you weren't allowed scoopers.
No.
Didn't like that.
No. And also the scooper worked well unless you had contact lenses, because if you had your eyes open for an entire stint, the contact lenses got welded to your eyeballs.
Was that your excuse for just being slow?
No, because I wasn't.
Can I go next, please? So this lot.
I would love it. Let's go.
Don't take all the cars. So I've done it quite a few times, and it's not it's probably more about the seat, isn't it, than anything else?
Yeah.
But actually, I think I can do it in pretty much any car, and I've written a few down here because the last time I did it was in a 991 Turbo S. But I think if I was doing it today, I'd probably be wanting to be doing it in a 992 Turbo S.
This is essential consumer advice we're providing here, isn't it?
Of course.
Exactly. I did write S-Class coupe down. I've never driven one, Chris, but I can just imagine, obviously an S-Class is a good car. A 7 Series is an amazing car, but an S-Class coupe as a driver is probably a better choice.
I don't know how people survive the long journeys without this advice. Yeah,
but I also wrote down here a 275 GTB4 cam, because if I just hopped in one, I'd be happy to keep going and keep going and keep going. And I'm not sure if I would be bothered if I got cramp in my leg or the fact the car was hot or there was no music or, I'd just be so damn happy to be driving that car. I really think I could do it in almost anything. Although I have written down 2 cars that I don't think I would want to do it in. One of them, Chris, you'll be happy to hear, is a old Defender.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other one is a KTM.
Crossbow. Oh, God.
A crossbow.
That'd be too much for me.
Crossbow.
So we've done me, Neil Clifford, Edward, Manish. What are you going to choose for your 1,000 miles?
Well, last week I was accused of being Bobby Ewing, so I'm going full JR. It would have to be a 560 SEC. It's such a great car. And we've all agreed it's definitely one of the top 3 instrument panels of all time. But I've driven that car a bit, or many, many years ago. There's just nothing like it. You just sit in it. A friend of my dad's had one. Basically, it was very, very new at the time. The seat just fit. You could see everything. Amazing air conditioning, even for the time. I mean, really, really amazing air conditioning. And I drove the thing from LA to Las Vegas. I basically drove. So I think that's only 400 miles, something like that. And it was just glorious. I came out just going, well, I think maybe had one break. It was one of those just extraordinary cars. Went up into the hills, through Palm Springs. It's just... It is my best memory of driving a car for any kind of distance and coming out thinking, well, what coloured lights there are here.
Why has no one dropped
here again?
Why has no one dropped the current 4-litre AMG twin turbo into a 560 SEC? What car?
I bet they have. They must have done that at Metatronic.
Yeah, I was going to say those Keenler, or were they all in prison now?
No, it's Metatronic who do it. Yeah.
Rumours are they are.
Yeah.
Mr. C. How are you going to travel 1,000 miles to get your next rose?
There's some context is important here. In fact, 2 areas of context. First of all, I am on holiday this week, just in case no one had noticed.
You seem like
you're slurring slightly. Do you know that,
I'm not
Chris?
slurring.
You are slurring slightly.
You're definitely not.
And the maid keeps topping your Lady Petrol.
And may I say, well, this is important advice. So people want to know this stuff. Today, I'm mostly enjoying Rock Angel, not Whispering Angel. It's Rock Angel.
It's actually quite nice, Rock Angel. It's better than Whispering Angel.
It's Whispering Angel with the gloves off, basically.
It's better, yeah.
Yeah.
Before
will you be shaving before dinner, Mr. Cooper?
Because I'm on holiday. It's Cornwall. I've been on this. It's Cornwall. It's just the sun's come out. I mean, a lot of people have been in the southwest or other parts of England on the holidays, and it has been pissing down the whole time. The last day or so, it's Wednesday, before we publish this. The sun has come out. It has actually been quite nice. So people are out there, and it's
1,000 miles in
you've overrun your car. You've overrun.
1,000 miles in one car.
Wait. I asked a really simple question. Will you be shaving? I was like, it's Cornwall. It's Wednesday, and it's sunny.
No, I won't be shaving.
No. Okay.
Not during this podcast.
Lads, help me. Lads, help me here. Lasso him with me. Someone get the other horn. Let's get him back. Let's get him back in the pen.
Context.
Get him back in the pen.
It depends where and with whom you're doing the 1,000 miles.
That's up to you.
Everything.
That's
okay, fine. So 991 Turbo S as well.
No. I can't really. No, you've done that. So if you just had to do 1,000 miles as quickly and painless as possible, I'd probably have something that had that amazing VW V8 twin turbo diesel. So the Panamera, the very short-lived Panamera V8 diesel,
Yeah.
that would do nearly 800 miles on a tank. Quite
Yeah.
nice seats, low revving, loads of torque. It was effortless. If you could do lots of miles, something you feel like has to rev the whole time to get back up to speed, and it's noisy and sort of, that's quite tiring. So something with loads and loads of torque, I think would do it. However, I do think I could do 1,000 miles in a day in a Defender. It just depends.
I'm not saying you can't.
No, I think I can imagine having to do, because can you do 1,000 miles in one, roughly in a straight line in the UK? Or was it, if you went from like Land's End?
It's about
is it like-
680.
how
No,
much?
well, that's 1,000 kilometers then.
680.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's not even 700, I don't think.
Okay.
1,000 miles in a day is a big thing. I think I've
It is
only ever
big.
done
You
it
probably
once.
couldn't do it in a Defender then, is it? Because
I've
at
done it
least
once.
yeah,
Land's End.
It's harder than
Yeah.
you think.
it is hard. You think.
I did it from
John O'Groats.
I did it from basically Rome to the UK, pretty much. I think that was about 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
I was absolutely in a 206 XS, which it just ruined me.
838 miles.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
What's
Maybe we
that, though?
could try
That's
to do that.
quite a
in a
wiggly
That's
day.
route.
Land's End to John O'Groats.
Yeah.
That looked quite wiggly to me.
Yeah. So
We should do
if I
that.
had to choose just one,
He's driving, not taking a plane, Chris.
Yeah.
okay. If I had to choose just one, Panamera V8 diesel.
Yeah, okay. Here's an interesting one, a geek point, Mr. C. Do you think there is a relationship between how many times a crank turns over on a journey and how fatigued your head is? In other words, do you think lower revving engines like diesels are less fatiguing to the body over a period of time?
They probably are.
Because I think there's something about the reciprocal part of an engine that
Yeah.
if it's going faster, it must create an energy that means that in the car, some part of your noggin is aware of the fact there's something going on that's more frantic
It's
than
stressful. It's stress inducing because it feels like it's under stress.
The one thing I would slightly challenge on your route you've taken there, Chris, is 1,000 miles. It is a bloody long way and it can get quite boring. So the benefit of having something that's a bit more sporty, which I appreciate, that is a good car and it's a good engine. But when you go through the odd péage or certain stretches of the motorway and you fancy just giving it the beans, it just sort of breaks the monotony up of just plugging away.
Yeah,
because
the reason you've driven 1,000 miles and not just hopped on a plane for 35 quid to Padova is because actually you want to enjoy that time in the car alone. You've left Penny. Penny's still in LA, so she's not coming.
We didn't specify that straight away. It has to be said. Right, here we go. This is a slightly random one, and we will furnish this with the images in question. Hoping we don't get sued for doing so, but hopefully these are copyright free. The question is, what's your best or favourite single motorsport image? Let's start with Neil Clifford.
Mine is surprisingly a static image. It is not an image of James Hunt winning the 1976 F1 title or something. But I think it's so good because it's static. It's so awesome. It so demonstrates the power of Ferdinand Pache, or however you pronounce his name.
Piek.
I know I'm not great at pronunciation.
Doesn't
It's
matter.
my dyslexia, but anyway, I tried to put emotion in to sort of combat my dyslexia. I think that image of the 917s all lined up at the factory,
Yeah.
12th of March, 1969, I think, which was just an awesome show of, Teutonic engineering at its best, really. Like, you've changed the rules, whatever it was, from 3 litre to 5 litre. I've been given the job of motorsport by my uncle or whatever, at Porsche. So he had all the power, and I'm just going to design the best fucking racing car that's ever been made. And I'm going to make 25 of them off the bat because I know Ferrari won't be able to do that. I'm going to show the power of Porsche, and I'm going to go and basically dominate world sports car racing in so many guises for 20 years, right? 917, 962, 956, whatever. It took he didn't win it the first time around because it obviously was super dangerous and they had to change the back of the car and all of that. But that image of the static white 917s at the factory with a couple of 356 set in the background, I think is just a fantastic photograph.
Rumor is that only the first 3 or 4 were actually completed cars, isn't it? So
Well,
when the FIA inspectors came to look at them, they basically tinkered with the first few, but apparently the ones at the back were just a shell, weren't they?
Yeah, I did a bit of research on that, and it sounds like there was more than that. It sounds like there were more like 15 that could work. But of course, they went on to make 50 or 60 of the things, even though they did authorize the 512 or whatever the Ferrari equivalent was. They only ever made 17 of those, and they should have made 25, and Ferrari got away with it because they're Ferrari.
Cheating bastards.
But I think, you know, that car, I'd have loved to. I'm bloody old, but I'm not this old. I'd have loved to have seen that. Was it Hans Hermann and Richard Atwood, 1970, winning that Le Mans thing? I mean, it's just fantastic. I'm lucky enough to have been in Le Mans in the 80s and 90s, seeing those awesome 962s and all of that malarkey. So I think that would be my choice. I think it's silent but powerful and amazing.
I like it. Manish, what's your favourite still image of motorsport?
Well, it won't surprise you. It's one of Senna, but it's actually taken by Mark Sutton, and it was after he'd won the Belgian Grand Prix in 1991. There's a bit of a lovely story to this. The Williams was starting to kind of happen in that year. That was the Adrian Newey, before the sort of all-conquering 14B from 92. This car was just looked different to everything else. It was packaged better. And Senna, famously won the first 4 races, and people were saying he was walking away from it. And I think in retrospect, there was a lot of analysis about that season. You realize he'd really nursed that thing through. There was one race where he was very much helped by Berger. But what was special about that Grand Prix? Lots of funny things happened. Jean Alesi really arrived as a motor racing driver. I remember he should have been on pole. He was up in the first 2 sectors. I was reading about it, and he hit traffic in the third one, and sort of Ferrari and Prost, if you like, were suddenly back in 1991. And then Piquet also was driving pretty goddamn well that year in the Benetton. He was suddenly back because he was driving for Flavio, and he was on a massive points bonus. They said he was on $100,000 per point, with a win bonus of $1 million on top of that. So it was just this fantastic race. And of course, this young guy that no one had heard of subbed for Bertrand Gachot, who'd CS sprayed a taxi driver in London. And that boy was Michael Schumacher. And Michael Schumacher was suddenly in Fast Eddie Jordan's beautiful. Do you remember that? That lovely 7-Up Jordan.
Yeah, Gary Anderson design. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So you had all of this, and then you watch this race, and Senna just did not dominate this race at all. No. And he got out into the lead. He was on pole position, but I remember Mansell got him at I think it was either Mansell or Prost. He basically came out of the pit stops in second. He just hung on. Inevitably, this very tightly packaged Williams of Mansell had a mechanical. I think it was an electrical. So Nigel was out. Patrese did the same thing, and Senna really. That was the other thing in this race. It looked almost for a while that Andre de Cesaris was going to win because he was closing Senna down in the second Jordan, and that car was built for Spa. But Senna hung on and he won, and it's just this beautiful photo. Because at the time, I don't think we had. Well, we didn't have the podium televised. BBC would have been off the air by then. But Mark Sutton, Keith Sutton's brother, just got above the podium. And if you look at this photo on the left-hand side, all of flowers, you've got Senna, Piquet's leg. You can see it because he's got a race suit on it. It's just Senna spraying up. And he's got the most, call it the Senna smile, spraying these flowers. And it's how I love to remember him. Just such a... And that is it. That's Formula One for me. Driver for me. Him that's boring, but then finding out in retro is anything but, and as well,
Your Wi-Fi is a bit
So-
sketchy, man.
Yeah,
Just so you know.
if Manish was cutting out there, we apologise. I
Sorry.
think the recording might have got it, Manish. So
Hopefully.
we'll trust that it did. Yeah, a bit of Ayrton Senna there. Edward Lovett, what's your favourite motorsport image?
So it's got to be Alonso on the deck chair, hasn't it?
Yes.
There's a couple. And I've just to add to Neil's 917 one, there's a very cool image of those two 917s in unison sliding out of a corner in the wet. I don't know what circuit is that.
It was Brands Hatch BOAC. I think it was 1970.
Yeah, that's a cool image. But there are two. What one? Just because I've got a picture of it at home, and I love it, which is sort of Jim Clark in his Lotus 49 on full tilt, which is just a brilliant photo. But actually, this same as Neil, this is the one for me that's always resonated to the extent where my car that Richard Tuthill built is this one, and we are building this series of cars in these colors so we can replicate this this photo. Yeah, so the IROC 2.8 RSRs,
beautiful.
That was
to be honest with you, there are I've got a lot of, not quite as good as Neil's bookshelf at home, but when you look through some of these period books, there are just so many evocative photos of racing and drivers in the day. You can spend hours just flicking through some books at this imagery.
Chris Cooper.
The 917 makes a case to be the greatest ever racing car. We'll discuss.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
also photographs pretty well.
Any photograph of a 917 moving or static, it's a winner, isn't it? It's it's an extraordinary thing. And we talked about it before. There's when I'm at home, there's a picture on the wall behind me of the number 2 numbered Gulf 917 that was in that film. I think still owned by the Finberg family. That I have actually on my wall here as well. That I was fortunate enough to sit in but not drive, because I said I can't fit in it. They offered me to drive it. Madness. I should have tried driving it when Gulf sponsored my catering 20 odd years ago. So 917s are amazing. It's a really hard one. It's really the art of the driver is at its peak, I think. If we park motorcycling and TT, which we talked about earlier on the year, which I still think is just otherworldly. If we keep it to 4 wheels, it's the art of the rally driver. And because nothing, a rally car in the air at some ridiculous angle, you think not just up in the air or nose down, but up in the air at an angle. I mean, no, sometimes it does go wrong. And we lost Craig Breen earlier on this year, and we have lost rally drivers in the past. And it's a bittersweet and sort of difficult one to say we love, because we know it's so close to the edge. But there's one I shared it with you guys before. It's a still from a clip which we'll credit when we put it up. Of there's amazing historic rallying going on all over the country and elsewhere in Europe, with these beautiful original and rebuilt Mark II Ford Escorts, seemingly more in the air than ever before. And there are some which just, in fact, I will just show it now to the camera.
That's amazing.
That is not CGI'd. It's just unbelievable. So we'll find out who it is and we'll credit him and show it up. But yeah, it's amazing. So anything that shows a rally car and a rally driver and the brave soul in the co-driver's seat who'd said flat whenever it was before that jump, or absolute, whatever the taxonomy of the code that they were using, thinking we're going to be looking at that 6,
Don't-
7 feet in the air.
Don't lift. Has anyone seen
Don't.
the YouTube videos with the Irish co-driver who goes
Oh.
mental? Aren't they wonderful?
Yeah, they
And
are.
he's going, give her death, kill her. She's begging for it. She's begging for it. That's a good. If you had a few whiskies, get onto those.
They're just heroes.
Right. So I'll answer mine quickly. Rallying, that's more my passion. I'm with Mr. C on that. If you've got them at Klein books, you'll understand why I can't choose a single image because they're Rally and Rally Cars, those two books. There's so many great images there. I can't bring myself to choose one. But there is one image that I look at that makes me grin maybe as much or even more. And it's a Formula One image. Because I like images that remind me of a time that maybe I was before I was born, or makes me think of the sport or any sport in a different way. And I think the image that I love is it's of the two Tyrrell six-wheelers, P34s.
Yeah.
And they're both sideways at Interlagos. And it's a 12-wheel drift. And whenever I see this image, I just cannot believe how good it is. I can't believe that anyone... I mean, look at that. That is two six-wheel cars drifting. And it makes me think of a Formula One where there couldn't be dominance for more than 2 seasons because the rules would permit someone else to come along and invent something new. These are 2 cars with 6 wheels fully crossed up in Brazil. It's an image, and it's Ronnie Peterson. I think it's Depailler as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask who it is. Yeah, it must be.
It's just an image that if you were a Formula One photographer and you said, I want to take one image to be remembered by, it would be 2 six-wheel Tyrrells on the lock stops in Brazil. It's the recipe from the gods, isn't it?
Can you explain how those front wheels work? So you've got the steering column goes down into multiple axles going to the wheels.
You've got 2 axles. You've got 2 sets of steering arms. Yeah. And the theory is you've got double the contact patch to turn the wheel.
And most importantly, lower frontal area, so less drag.
Yeah.
And the 2 racks have got different levels or rates of Ackerman. You know what Ackerman is?
Yeah.
So Ackerman is how much the inside wheel turns the radius. Yeah. So if you've got 1 axle there, 1 there, so they've got different rates of Ackerman. But the big issue was probably a bit more grip, but most importantly, that's why the Williams car, because they tried a 6-wheels car, the FW07, they tried it, but with 2 rear axles, extra traction and lower frontal area. So yeah.
I thought it was the FW08, but that was exactly
FW08.
Right, yes.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
yeah.
I stand corrected.
It's a nerd off.
A nerd off.
Right.
Yeah, but I got Ackerman.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes,
Mr. Cooper.
You can have. Do you know what, Mr. C? You can have Ackerman. You really can.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to pose the next subject. You fill your glass up. So here we go. We are going to go for, and I'm answering this first, so I can totally stitch Neil Clifford.
No,
You've got a dinner tonight, Chris. You've got a dinner. Be careful.
They'll wait.
Favorite electric seat adjustment buttons, and they are, of course, the Porsche 928. On to you, Neil Clifford.
Oh no, that's good because I haven't chosen that one.
Oh
No,
Oh,
you got it wrong. There's only one choice here.
What?
It's 90s Mercedes.
Oh, I'm going. I'm going to dinner
I have
now.
this right. I think I got this right.
That's them covered then.
Yeah.
I mean, basically,
Scroll forward, everybody.
if you talk about anything to do with interiors, the answer is always 90s Mercedes, isn't it? The dash, the illumination, the fonts, the stereo, the seats, everything.
Yeah.
But the seat adjuster,
Yeah.
I remember, did I buy? I think it was my first sort of Ponce Mercedes. It was a 129, I think, a 320. I couldn't afford a 500. But you get in that car and you see the seat adjuster is the shape of a seat.
Yeah.
It's so amazing, simplistic genius of a German that spent months thinking about this for us to realize, oh my God, that's so bloody obvious. Why didn't anyone else design it like that? Because no one is as clever as that bloke in Stuttgart or wherever it was where he designed it. So you've got, even the little, when you got in and you realized the headrest went up and down with that little button that's above the seat.
Yeah.
And you just fuck around with it. You fuck around with it the whole time.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Sorry, Mr. Cooper, can you give us the headrest going up noise again?
So I
Doesn't
think
everyone do that?
there is
No.
Is it just me?
Yes.
I mean, you could argue that they copied it from Bentley, because if you look at a Turbo R Bentley,
They had it, didn't they?
they got it. It's not in the
Did
right
they?
place.
It's in the
because
middle.
It's in the middle, and you can't really find it as easy because you've got all those millions of buttons, and there's no lights, obviously, in a Bentley, so you can't see the bloody things. It's not illuminated. The fact that the Mercedes has a beautiful illuminated line all the way around,
Yeah.
it's just perfect.
And it's
So
a
you
seat
agree with?
you'd actually like to sit in as well. It's not just some sort of. It's a seat you'd like to sit in as well.
Yeah.
That little.
So Neil, you agree with me? The 928 has the best buttons. Excellent. Moving on. Edward Lovett, what's your favourite electric seat buttons? A question I never thought I'd ask you, mate.
Well, no, so some of the topics we've had over the last few weeks, and in the sort of 24 hours leading up doing the prep work, I just don't even know where to start. And I thought, this is a fun one. I should be able to do it. And then I realised I don't really know where to start. Then I realised it's on the Porsche configurator in 991 era came the 14-way adjustable seat.
Yeah, that's too much.
How do you go back from that for Porsche? Now, today the next one's got to be the 138 adjustable seat in 2030. But actually, what looking at the actual buttons, the 14-way adjustable seat on a Porsche is quite ergonomic, as you would expect, and it's quite easy to use and intuitive. Bear in mind, you're driving at this time, and you're got to put your hand down the side of the seat and just guess what button does what. And then the FF has a 16-way adjustable seat, and I remember putting my hand down the side of that seat, and none of the fucking buttons do what you think they're going to do.
Don't.
So you end up, no, I don't want to go forward. I want the tilt to go back, or I don't want lumbar support. I want to go forward.
Yet more critical consumer advice for anyone thinking of buying one of these vehicles. We've got it covered, all you potential FF buyers.
That's very true, Ed. I've only just discovered, I've owned an FF for 7 years. I've only just discovered that it's got heated seats.
On the little roller. It's got a little, and obviously, because it's down the side of the seat, you don't know if you're on 1, 2, or 3.
It came on by accident.
It must be, surely, if you push it down, because it would be numbered on the roller 1, 2, 3.
Well, I realize that's what you think,
logic.
but obviously, whilst you're trying to navigate the autobahn at 180 miles an hour, and you're a little chilly on your testicles, you don't want to be overthinking which direction you're going. As Neil said, the Mercedes very cleverly just designed the shape of a seat, and now on most of them, it's on the door panel, so you don't need to guess what you're doing. You can just look at it.
Unfathomable electric seat switch for me. There's only one winner. I love this car dearly, but I can never ever work out what's going on. McLaren 720S. Just it's somewhere down by your right sort of knee. No idea.
No, well, I'm not sure I can remember you, but my only experience in McLarens is I'm just not sure I could own one or it's like the early ones, because the navigation and infotainment systems are so bloody complicated. That's the only time I would get lost, I think.
Right, who's Manish? Your favourite? I'm sure you talked about this a lot, but actually, you're going to go Mercedes, aren't you? I think you're going to Mercedes. So, what's your favourite?
I was nodding at everything that Neil said, But what was incredible about those is exactly that: the idea that you've got something that looks like the thing that you're manipulating. You can't really make a mistake with it. Well, there was one other thing. That one, they had a little 1, 2, 3, so it actually had a memory, and you could. And there's a little green button on the bottom, so you could literally press 1 and it would go into memory 1 or 2 or 3. But the other thing about it was, do you remember the lumbar support? Yeah. That's on a little roller, and that was on the center. And that also had a little 1 position, 2 position, 3 position. It's perfection. W140 seat control, front and back, no better.
I think, has everyone had their say there? I think they have, haven't they? Yes. No, Mr. C hasn't. What's yours going to be?
Well, 91 500 SL. or
Yeah,
that
okay.
SL era.
There's no argument, is there?
Well, I also have something to add. What is the worst electric seat adjuster mechanism? So I borrow. There's an outfit that will rent current model Jaguars and Land Rovers. And a while ago, I rented a current model or the latest model Range Rover, and it's got on the side of the door sort of looks like a seat adjusting thing, but everything else about the seat. So the other, Edward, your other 16 things you have to adjust, they're all in the touch screen. And to get it up on the touch screen, you have to sort of adjust like the squab forwards or backwards. But unless you realize it's on the screen, as you turn from looking over here somewhere to over there somewhere, and as you get from there to there really quickly, the screen goes back to whatever it was on before.
Yeah, this is
Jerry
where
McGovern,
the ultimate technology.
Explain yourself.
Yeah.
Actually, on that subject, sorry, I'm just diverging again. I haven't done it this evening.
Oh my goodness.
Did anybody read this week Jerry McGovern's speech about Jaguar?
No.
He's the chief creative officer.
Do we want to go there? Do we want to go there?
No.
He said,
"Is it an electric seat?"
He said the Jaguar brand has zero equity. Zero equity. There is zero equity left in the Jaguar brand.
I think zero is a bit unfair, but I would agree it's a very low number.
So I hold him responsible for this madness, which is no. 91
Right.
500 SL,
dinner.
Jerry, bring it back.
You got a bit of cramp in the old back there, Neil. Or
Right,
you moving around a bit?
We've got about 15 minutes.
Okay, so we're gonna do-
Chris,
No, sorry,
Chris,
fine, keep going.
you need 15 minutes to read Manish's
I know, we'll
two-car
do the
garage.
two-car garage now. Bear with me, people, because I've got to bring up this little essay from Manish here. Hold on. Here we go. Right.
He's had much time to consider this.
Deary God. Right.
About 31 episodes, actually,
you've
Manish.
hit your 50s, both kids out of university, and work is busy, but it isn't giving either of you the buzz after 30 successful years. Mortgages, school fees, university fees, all a blip in the rearview mirror now. And you've saved a bit too. Your family were farmers back in the day, and you both loved the sea. 20 years ago, when the last of your good friends were married, it was in the Caribbean, and you loved it. You've been there almost every year since, enjoying every island. But you fell for Tobago, which coincidentally is exactly where Manish is in that picture now. It's rural, rustic, and easygoing. Empty beaches, wonderful snorkeling, rainforests, 2 or 3 decent restaurants, but with amazing and Indian Caribbean fusion food. My mouth is watering.
Yeah.
You've bought a 50-acre estate up in the hills with a grand house with a 360-degree veranda that needs everything doing. And you want to put 40 acres to work, brackets, citrus, cane, and mangoes. It's a hell of a project, but that view of the Caribbean and that warm evening breeze make every sunset worth it. This is even longer than a Clifford. You need 2 cars. Both have to be practical. The roads are narrow and twisting. The local mechanics can fix anything mechanical, but if it's a black box that fails, the car goes to Trinidad, or you wait 3 weeks for the part to come from wherever. The first car has to be a total workhorse, a rugged off-roader that needs to carry just about anything from planks to water tanks, from bathtubs to 6-foot copper pipes. The second needs to be very capable still, but carry 4 in comfort with snorkel gear, 2 windsurfing boards on the roof for when the kids come over, and have very good air conditioning. We'll be taking this one on the ferry to Trinidad, which can be a tad flashy, and you don't want to look too dowdy. Dowdy's a lovely word. No budget, but be sensible, and you want to keep these cars for 10 years. I'm going to get my breath back. Manish, you can answer your own question.
So, I have a bit of local knowledge because I see the cars that are around. And I have to say that the real problem here is potholes. There are a lot of potholes, and that's on the ordinary
special.
roads. Absolutely. And the other thing, and this is just a subtle digression, a lot of the parts here, I mean, cars here are 95% Japanese. And when people buy parts, I'm actually at the Corbin Wildlife Reserve today, and one of the men who runs it, Ian, has a Ford Ranger, which would be my first choice. But he points out that many parts that are bought by people on this island are probably not real manufacturer's parts. So tires go in a year because we wonder where they're really from, even though they've got the right badge. The same thing for almost any component that fails on one of these. And I have a feeling most of the cars here anyway, reconditioned Japanese cars. So there is this place, you feel they're all being held together by elastic bands, and actually they're paying probably too much for the bits and pieces that they have because they wear out very, very quickly, from batteries to tires to clutches. So I just said it. So Ford Ranger for me, I went on to the Trinidad car websites, and I think you need to have something that you can get spare parts for, or at a push get over to the island. There's a 6-hour ferry that you can put your car onto. And the Ford Ranger, there are two, and the one that I quite like is the FX4. 4 doors, massive flat panel at the back, 200 horsepower, huge, great tires. It will go absolutely anywhere. I think it's a 6-speed automatic gearbox. And I think you would probably go for an auto here because clutches burn here like you can't imagine. I mean, there are hills sometimes like that. Sometimes you're flat, sometimes you're going down a hill and off camber. I mean, it can be quite terrifying. So that would be my basic car. And then the other car that I would get here, I'd actually get an Audi Q5. Trinidad has got good Audi dealerships. And it's again got very, very good spares for this car. You've got effectively a very civilized off-roader here. You can definitely get great air conditioning, definitely get 4 people inside, get the roof rack, and you can get your sails up. But take all of that down, buy it in, I can't remember the name of the blue that they have. It's a kind of very deep metallic blue. I think you could go to Trinidad with that, with the leather seats, and go to a nice restaurant if you wanted to. And I don't think anyone would look down at you. So they would be my 2 Tobago cars.
Tell you what, lads, I'm feeling very smug here because the local knowledge, I'm not far off this. I'm pretty good. Edward Lovett, go.
I've smashed this. We'll just finish. We'll finish this is the last episode 31. Edward's 2-car. You're all going to want to move to Tobago after this.
Get on with it, Tintin.
So, do you want me to start with the practical one or the sports car first?
You start. We know Edward, the difference. You start where you want to start. Come on.
Fine. So the practical car is an Icon 4x4 FJ44, which. This is an Icon with a soft top, but the whole thing will come off, so you can throw planks in there, surfboards, whatever you need up on the plantation. There's a beautiful one on their Instagram site in a sort of a matte blue. They use this sort of military grade paint on there. They have V8 engines, automatic gearboxes, and I'm sure Jonathan, who owns it, if you need any parts, he'd be happy to fly out and fix the car. But that's going to be my practical car. And then obviously you do need some sort of sports car because this is our sort of fantasy 2-car garage. And
Are you going to bring Tarmac or Serco or some other
Be
major
quiet and drink your lady
infrastructure
petrol.
provider
I'm
with
about to smash it out the fucking park. We are buying a 1968 GT 500 Mustang with welded doors and a roll cage and spotlights from the Thomas Crown Fair.
Very good.
Yeah,
that's actually quite good. I hate to say that.
I think he supported his confidence there.
Jack. Yeah, whether they like me on the ferry or not, I couldn't care less. What a selection of cars. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful 31 weeks.
That's a very good film, and that's a great scene. And that Rene Russo never looked better than in that film.
She
throwing her leg over the side of that.
Right, right, Monsieur Petrol de Lady, Essence de Femme. Mr. Cooper, who do you want to have, or what 2 cars are you going to have for your 2-car garage?
I've gone Land Rover, despite all I've just said about Land Rover.
Yeah.
So I think the very, very practical car will be a Stage 1. Very important. Stage 1 V8 Defender pickup.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
Because anything that broke, because I know the Cabrillas, but I don't know Tobago so well. But I did a lot of sailing there and sort of stuff when I was younger, and The potholes are unbelievable. The roads can be beautiful and smooth, and then there's just this volcanic pothole. So and they don't, and the rain, because it rains a lot, obviously, so the rain just scours it all out, blah blah blah. So a stage 1 V8 Defender pickup, things will break, but the good news is when they're repaired, you'll get some Toyota or Isuzu replacement part. So eventually your Defender will become a Toyo Fender or something, and some sort of hybrid Anglo-Japanese improvement on the original thing. Yeah. So that's the first thing that I'd have. And then the second thing that I'd have, I wouldn't, because there's only one of those GT500 Mustangs. Still a Land Rover. It does every single thing that manages specified as very, very careful and important requirements. I would have, and Sakai had before, it's a 2017 Range Rover Sport V8 Supercharged.
Oh,
Get me.
Terrible selection.
All of those things, got very good air conditioning.
Yep.
You take it on the ferry, it'll get onto the ferry. It won't look too dowdy. Granted, it might not last 10 years, but hey, I've been boring for the last 20 years. Live a little.
Well, it sounds like it's still boring. You've bought a new Range Rover Supercharged.
No, 2017.
Right. Stop being so bloody punchy, everyone. Right,
You
here
see,
we go. I can't believe I'm saying that.
You can see Edward.
Neil Clifford, help us out here.
Have you found a comfortable seat, Neil? You've been moving around for the last hour.
No, my drama was that I was 2% charge on my laptop. I thought, oh,
we could have got away with that.
No, so I had to sort of huddle around looking
You
for.
could have done. This could be when people see this episode, they're going to go, "We're panicked with these points." Yeah. Right, Neil Clifford, what are your two-car garage?
I've got this desperate vision of Chris Cooper ordering 4D number plates for his Range Rover Sport so he can avoid the congestion charge. I mean, we need to talk about those 4D number plates. They are the most hideous thing that's ever been invented.
Is that why they're not just because you like them? They're to avoid congestion charge.
It avoids the congestion charge.
Oh, I thought it was just a chav.
Do they work?
They work.
Let's get some.
But they are hideous. But they are
hideous.
They do work.
It's a bit of a gamble, isn't it? If you use them for a week and then suddenly they crack it, you're in for a big fine, aren't you?
Well, I don't know, but any cabbie you talk to, sort of dodgy cabbie in
goes, there are surely very few of those.
No, but those 4D plates, you can save yourself 200 quid a week.
Can you?
Neil Clifford, tell us what
don't take over, Christopher.
How much is the congestion charge in Tobago?
That's a good point. I've got to bring this back now. I've got to bring this back. Otherwise, you're not going to be at your dinner, Chris. Not that you're going to remember much about it tomorrow anyway. Neil Clifford, what are you going to have for your two cars?
I've been very, very sensible, and I'm still happy with my choice. Actually, I live my life a little bit through a camera lens, which is not a proud thing to do because often I've got all the gear and no idea. But anyway, my job is about seeing things, and so even though I know the Defender is shit, I'd have a Defender, but just because it looks the best.
Yep.
Whatever you want to say, I'm tooling around in one here in Ibiza. It is sort of shit and amazing all at the same time.
Yeah,
because it's just full of character. It'd be a 110 pre-2005, so you've got the 12 seats, you've got the air conditioning that marginally works. It may well drive like an old bus, but it won't break, basically. So that would be my logical choice for the sort of the family rough roads, all of that. But then I read it slightly differently. I still read it that you needed a cool thing that you want to show up somewhere else, but it's still got to be 4x4. It's still got to be rugged. It's still got to be something that is going to survive Tobago. You want to show off a bit wherever you're going. You're going for a long weekend in Barbados even, but you know, it's still got to be something that is relatively sensible. So a car that I've always itched for, and they're always 14 grand. They were 14 or 15 grand 20 years ago. In 100 years' time, they're still going to be 14 grand. So my budget is very low. It's that Mitsubishi Pajero.
Oh, yeah.
Evolution 2-door Dakar.
Yeah.
Right? with those big
The
arches.
Dakar, yeah.
I've been so tempted to buy one of them, like a million times.
Duke of London had one, didn't they, a year ago?
I mean, there's a 4-star classics have always got one. There's always, and you'd have it painted like a proper Dakar car, maybe. So when you turned up in Barbados for fish fry evening on a Thursday, you're going to look like Ayrton Senna turning up in a Mitsubishi, basically. It's a super cool thing with those big arches. Maybe you've got a roll bar inside. The air conditioning's still going to work. You can stick your kids still in the back. Your surfboards would look really good on top. You've only spent 30 or 40 grand on your 2 cars, and I don't think you're going to be much cooler than that.
I think you might be wrong, Mr. Clifford, because I've yet to answer this. So I reckon I've seen a few corners of this square planet, and wherever I go, and if I'm in something that pretends on the cover to say it can go anywhere, there's always a small little pickup with 2 doors and a flatbed that gets there before me and seems to go anywhere and hits any pothole. And the one that always struck me as being the best was the Mazda B series. Mazda B200 basically ran Africa for about 20 years. They're everywhere. They're unstoppable. And my working car is a Mazda B200 because it's very Caribbean as well. And I think when you move to somewhere, you want to buy a vehicle that makes you not look like you're a foreigner. And if you bought a B200 in Tobago, I think you just look like a local. Just get a beaten up one. It'll go anywhere. It'll smash any pothole. It's like a cockroach. You cannot kill the bloody thing.
And it's not a Hilux.
No, it's not. It's a Mazda B200.
That's why it's interesting.
They're fantastic cars. And I remember in Africa, they used to trade massively over us because they were unkillable. So that's my unkillable car. But for a bit of chintz and a bit of specialness, I've actually still got some rallies back in the UK. Pension's just vested, and I've gone to Kingsley and I've had them make me a Range Rover Classic. I've had it wax sold to buggery. It weighs about 4.5 tons because it's got so much wax on those chassis legs. And it's green on the outside. It's got a lovely Cohiba interior. It's got new air conditioning. It's got a great hi-fi. And when I go to Tobago and I see all these lads in their brand new SUVs, they're all going to go, get me one of those because you are so cool.
Yeah.
Manager, do they like colour in Tobago? Colourful.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
There is. I was going to say your choice of sports car, which I do think is really rather wonderful. The only thing is, I could see you going past the Black Rock Beach and a Rasta going, "There go the white man," like that. They just know who you are.
Maybe, but I would also I'd have a third car just to fit in. I'd have one of those Skoda pickups they did in the UK. It was like
Maverick.
They're all bright. They're all yellow, I think.
I'd have obviously, none of us chose a Panda 4x4 because it didn't quite fit the criteria, but we might have done otherwise. Right, we need to move this on quickly, people. We're going to do some music first. Manish, give us a tune.
When I wrote my wonderful Ferrari script, and I've been thinking about it for various reasons here, and it is therefore a car story. There was a moment where Mike Hawthorne met Peter Collins and Louise King after they'd got married. And Peter and Louise got this very beautiful house that Enzo Ferrari gave them a villa, and they cleaned it up. And it's Mike seeing Peter and Louise desperately in love for the first time. And the piece of music that tells me that is I Put a Spell on You by Nina Simone.
Yeah.
It's just love and Ferraris and the 1950s. It's beautiful.
Great tune. I think we're going downhill from here. Chris Cooper.
So my last thought on the 2-car, this was on Piston Heads today.
Oh.
That would be...
Is that a Maloo? Is that a Maloo of a Bentley?
It's a Bentley Maloo, yeah, for the sort of... Rather than a sort of
so it's a Baloo. It's a Baloo.
A balloon.
I was thinking about this, looking at motorsport pictures. And actually... Monkey, you sent a little picture this morning of you were testing today at Goodwood, and you met an old mate of ours who was one of the drivers in the Caterham 24-hour race car 21 years ago. And it got me thinking about Caterham racing and when I started. And the first year I did Caterham racing was 98. And I had a CD, it would have been a CD in the car. I had a Mark III Golf GTI, not a great car, but it was green. And one of the CDs I played a lot driving, usually my memory is it was always driving to Snetterton to go testing, I guess because that was cheaper and easy to get hold of. So driving up the old A11 before the old dual carriage was there. Life Through a Lens, Robbie Williams, the album, but the track Life Through a Lens just sticks in my memory of sort of feel good and excitement. It was an interesting album. It was his first solo album after Take That. And he was clearly on a voyage of discovery. And I kind of felt like, when you start racing or track days or whatever it is, something new, it just felt so exciting. And that Life Through a Lens and that time in his life and in London and in my life, so, if these tracks are about reminding us about journeys and driving and what they meant to us, then Life Through a Lens really sticks for me. So yeah, Life Through a Lens, Robbie Williams, 98.
Neil Clifford.
I'm lucky enough to spend a lot of time in America, and I desperately try to rent cars, not, get a cab. And I've got a little playlist on my Spotify, which I only listen to, which is all of brilliant American music. And I adore America. I love the nature. I love the optimism of the place. I love the hard work. I love the grit and determination. Everyone's an entrepreneur. It's such a, anything is possible place. I know it's sort of messed up in other areas, but anyway, I adore Great Britain, but I admire America. And my favorite track when I'm listening to that, and I try to get as weird a car as possible, is Simon and Garfunkel, America. It's just a wonderful song. There's nothing else that needs to be said about it. It's no words required. Just listen to it. It's just perfect.
Pass me a cigarette. I think there's one in my raincoat. We smoked the last one an hour ago. Amazing.
It's beautiful.
It's fantastic. Ed would love it. I feel sorry for you following that. It's a good tune, that.
Well, so I did read a few of the comments on YouTube, and it does seem there's a few people of my era listening to the podcast, and they quite liked the annual and the clubbing tracks. So here's another energetic one for you, which is Energy 52 Cafe Del Mar.
Oh,
June.
I love Cafe. That's fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
We're all secretly clubbers. Where are you going out to tonight in Ibiza, Neil?
Tonight is an easy night. We had a very eventful night last night, which I won't express any more detail on, but tonight I'm in bed by about 9:15.
I better do it. So I had a note from someone. I don't look at Instagram messages because you get lots of people that send weird stuff. And the other day I thought I'd just crack open a message, and it was just someone that just said, "Why have you not had any Red Hot Chili Peppers on the music?" And I was like, "You're quite right. We got that wrong." Point. So I'm going to go for something quite aggressive from Blood Sugar Sex Magic. So Blood Sugar Sex Magic, which is "Suck My Kiss," which I still think is a brilliant piece of aggressive, whatever their genre of music is, just sort of psycho rock. It's a brilliant tune.
Yeah.
And if you do play it in your car, just drive carefully because it might encourage you to be a naughty boy or girl. On that note, thank you very much to my co-hosts, Neil Clifford, Ibiza, Manjpandi, Tobago, Chris Cooper, St Maurs, Edward Lovett, Swindon, Chris Harris, Bristol. We're really sorry that this has gone to quite a middle-class place. And next week, we're going to have a limit of 500 quid per car. Chris Cooper's not going to drink. Manjpandi is going to be in a normal country. Neil Clifford's going to be horrible. And Edward Lovett's going to be in Swindon.
I'll be at the canteen.
We will see you next week. Thank you for listening.